We're back with more EDH gameplay. Today, Reuben has brought out his classic Grist the Hunger Tide, looking to go wide with some skittering insects. New to the channel is Drew with Iroas God of Victory, hoping to swing big with evasive creatures. I'm piloting Braids Arisen Nightmare, wanting to torture my opponents by making them sack creatures. And last up is Mike with a fearsome pair of Vial Smasher and Sakashima. Comment who you think will take the win today and consider supporting the channel by using our TCG player affiliate link below. Reuben wins a die roll and starts us off. Reuben starts the game off with a draw, land, and plays out a Delighted Halfling, passing. Drew drops a command tower with no follow-up. I draw and play a swamp, passing to Mike. Mike draws, plays a tap land, and moves us to turn 2. Reuben plays another land for turn and then drops a turn 2 Grist.
It's going to uptick 1. What's up with the damn nations, bro? Getting milled. Alright.
Reuben makes an insect after milling a card and passes. Drew draws and plays an Arid Mesa for turn, taking a total of 3 damage as he shortcuts a Sacred Foundry to the field and plays a Loyal Apprentice for turn. Moving to combat, he swings 2 damage my way and passes. I draw and play a Reliquary Tower as my land for turn. I cast a strong Dark Ritual, getting 3 black mana.
Use that 3 mana to cast Braids.
Go.
Yeah. And then I'm gonna play this Tormod script.
After getting out a turn 2 Braids, I move to my end step and sack my artifact. No one else has an artifact to sack, so they all lose 2 life while I draw 3 cards and pass over to Mike, not having to discard since I have Reliquary Tower out. Mike draws and plays another tap land for turn, passing.
See how fast mine's are.
Draw.
Reuben draws for turn 3. He upticks his Planeswalker, milling a card and making another insect. He plays a land for turn and swings 1 damage Mike's way. He passes. Drew untaps and draws. He plays a Plains. He casts a strong Professional Facebreaker. Moving to combat, he swings 2 damage at an open Mike. Mike takes the damage, and Drew gets to make a treasure from the Facebreaker seeing the hit. In his second main phase, he uses the treasure to cast a Reconnaissance, passing to me. I draw and play a Swamp. I pay 2 mana to cast a Bloodghast. Moving to combat, I swing my Braids at Drew. He takes the 3 damage, and then I move to my end step, sacking my Bloodghast with Braids. Both Mike and Drew take 2 damage from not sacking a creature, drawing me 2 cards, while Reuben sacks one of his insect tokens. For Mike's turn, he plays a land and then casts a turn 3 Vial Smasher, quickly passing over to turn 4. Reuben draws and uptakes his commander again, milling a card and making an insect. He plays a tap land for turn and then casts a Crawl Whip Cracker, not getting its ETB and passing the turn. Drew draws for turn and moves straight to combat. He swings his Apprentice at me and his Facebreaker at Mike for 2 damage each. We both take the 2 damage and Drew gets to make 2 treasures. However, before combat ends, Drew untaps his creatures with Reconnaissance. In his second main phase, Drew casts a Borrow Signet, followed by his commander, Iroas God of Victory. However, Mike is quick to respond with a Force of Will, pitching a card to exile and taking 1 life. It should be noted that in the game before this, Drew absolutely dominated with Iroas, so Mike is showing some signs of PTSD. Mike also has a Vial Smasher trigger, randomly choosing me to deal 5 damage to. Drew plays a tap land for turn, getting to Surveil. All out of mana, he passes. For my turn, I draw and play a land. That triggers my Bloodghast's landfall trigger, and I get to return them from the graveyard to the field. I then pay 4 to cast an Eradicator Valkyrie, hoping to gain some life and make my opponent sack some creatures. Moving to my end step, I again sack my Bloodghast to Braids. Reuben sacks an insect while Mike and Drew take 2 damage and I draw 2 cards, passing to Mike. Mike draws for turn and casts a Pilgrim's Eye, fetching a swamp to hand to play for turn. His Vial Smasher triggers and he rolls to deal another 3 damage to me.
Every time I see Vial Smasher, it decides it's gonna pick on one person.
Yeah, right?
He passes and we move to turn 5. Reuben starts the turn by drawing and uptaking his commander again, milling 1 card and making an insect. He plays a land for turn and decides just to pass. Drew draws and plays a War Room as his land for turn.
How many cards in hand, Mike?
Don't do it. I got 1
I
blue.
got 10.
I got 1 blue. That's all I need.
We're gonna pay 6 for Iroas.
Birdie, bro. You get a birdie.
it's an
Oh
enchantment.
my
Enchantment. You
Yeah.
get a birdie.
Give me-
Drew attempts to cast his commander again, but Mike responds with the Swan Song, since Iroas is an enchantment creature. His commander is again countered by Mike, and he gets to make a 2-2 birdie while Vial Smasher deals 1 damage to Reuben. Moving to combat, Drew decides to swing both his creatures at Mike. Mike declares to block the 2-1 with his Pilgrim Eye, but Drew responds by removing it from combat with Reconnaissance. Mike takes 2 damage and Drew gets to make a treasure, also removing his Facebreaker from combat. For my turn, I draw and play a Temple of the False God, returning my Bloodghast to the field.
For the sake of taking damage, I'm gonna destroy your creature.
Ooh,
Destroy a creature with no counters.
I destroy Reuben's creature with reach with a Heartless Act, wanting him to take some damage. I then move to combat, swinging my 4/3 flyer Reuben's way, deciding not to boast. He takes the 4 and I get to gain 4 life. I then move to my second main phase and cast a Blade Crafter, making everyone sack a creature. Moving to my end step, I sack my Bloodghast again with Braids. Again, Reuben sacks an insect while Mike and Drew take 2 damage and I draw 2 cards, passing the turn. Mike untaps and draws. He plays a land for turn, then casts an Izzet Signet. His Vial Smasher dishes out 2 damage Drew's way. He follows up with his second commander, Sakashima of 1,000 Faces, entering as a copy of Vial Smasher that doesn't have to sack itself. Mike moves to pass a turn, but on his end step, Reuben decides to pay 4 mana to have his Shifting Woodland become a copy of Perpetual Timepiece until end of turn. He activates the artifact to mill himself 2 cards and moves to turn 6. Reuben draws and plays a land for turn. He uptakes his commander again, milling a card and making an insect, and then passing the turn again. Drew draws and plays a land. He pays 3 mana to cast Adeline, Resplendent Cathar.
I'll let you have it.
Okay.
I'll let you have it.
Sure. I'll pay another 5 for Commander Liara Portier.
After casting some creatures, Drew moves to combat and swings his Facebreaker at me and the Loyal Apprentice at Mike, getting 3 1/1s also attacking each of us from the Adeline attack trigger. His Liara also triggers, exiling the top 3 cards of his library that he can play until end of turn since he is attacking 3 players. I decide to block the 1/1 swing my way. Mike blocks both creatures swinging his way, and Reuben doesn't block at all. I take 2 damage, Reuben takes 1, and Drew removes all blocked creatures from combat along with his attacking creatures after they dealt damage. From damage, Drew gets to make 2 treasures and moves to his second main phase. He casts the Gold Knight Commander from exile and passes the turn. I draw for turn and play a Bajuka Bog as my land for turn. When it enters, I decide to exile Reuben's graveyard. I get to return my Bloodghast to the field from its landfall trigger, and Reuben decides to respond by making his Shifting Woodland a copy of the Sakura Tribe Elder in his graveyard, sacking it to go and fetch a basic to the field. I move to combat and decide to swing my 4/3 flyer at Drew and my commander at Reuben. Both declare no blocks and take the damage while I gain 4 life.
I'm gonna pay 3 mana for Ashnod's Altar. I can make some mana.
Feeling a bit scared from Drew's board presence, I decide to sack my flyer for 2 mana and play out a strong Massacre Girl.
I'm gonna pass. I know, I didn't want to.
With all the 1/1s on the field, everything but the Massacre Girl is wiped, passing the turn to Mike. Mike casts a nice Atali Primal Storm after the wipe, hoping to have done 12 damage with both his commanders out. He passes and we move to turn 7. Reuben untaps and gets to uptick in his commander. He mills an insect and a land this time, getting to make 2 insect tokens and an extra loyalty point on his commander.
Alright, Frank. I'm gonna bog you too.
Oh
Let's
no,
go.
my blood gas.
Sir.
No.
Let's go.
Reuben and I go bar for bar on some Bajuka Bogs, being the graveyard players. He passes and Drew moves to untap and draw. He casts a Chivalric Alliance, setting up some future card draw. He passes. I draw for turn and then cast a late Phyrexian Arena, feeling like I haven't drawn enough cards. I then cast Dreadhorde Invasion, setting up some sack fodder. Moving to combat, I decide to swing my Massacre Girl at Reuben for 4 minutes damage. He simply takes the hit and I pass my turn. Mike draws and plays a land that gains him a life.
I'm going to combat.
I'm open.
Yes, sir. Take 6. Give me your cards.
Land.
Mountain.
Oh.
Man.
Whoa!
You get 1 as well.
Mike swings a Tali my way, but on his attack trigger, everyone but Mike reveals a land. His sadness is quickly flipped when he reveals an ancient copper dragon from the top of his deck. He casts a dragon for free, and I take the 6 damage from the attack. In his second main phase, he casts a Spark Double, having it enter as another Atali Primal Storm, but this time with a +1/+1 counter. He passes after a strong turn 7. Reuben draws for turn and plays a command tower. He pays to cast a Diabolic Intent, sacking an insect to tutor a card to his hand.
You should do it. Don't target me. Target someone
Alright,
else. Oh man.
After tutoring, he casts a Song of the Damned, getting 2 black mana since he only has 2 creatures in his graveyard. He then attempts to end the game by casting Morality Shift, but Mike is too quick and responds with an Arcane Denial. Reuben is denied swapping his graveyard and library, which would have killed us with his commander's ultimate. Delayed draw triggers are put on the stack for Mike and Reuben, and then Reuben decides to -2 his Grist, sacking his other insect and destroying Mike's Spark Double Atali. Moving to his end step, Drew decides to activate his War Room, drawing a card and losing 2 life. He then casts a Swords to Plowshare on the original Atali, gaining Mike 6 life. Drew moves to his turn, and Mike and Reuben both get to draw. Drew plays a land for turn and then casts his commander for the 3rd time, this time finally resolving and passing the turn. For my turn, I lose 2 on my upkeep, 1 to amass an army and another to draw a card. I then draw for turn and play a swamp. I cast a Hasty Nether Trader. I then pay 3 mana and another 2 by sacking my token to the altar to recast my girl Braids.
I'll swing for you, Reuben, for trying to win.
We're trying to win.
Trying to win. He
Or
was trying to
swing
win.
at you for trying to play the
He was trying
game.
to win.
Reuben takes his 4 damage, and needing more black pips, I decide to sacrifice my Field of the Dead to destroy a non-basic land, letting us all tutor for a basic to the field untapped. I then use that basic swamp to cast a Phyrexian Reclamation. Moving to my end step, I sack the Nether Trader to Braids. Everyone loses 2 life, and I get to draw 3 cards, passing the Mike. For Mike's turn, he plays another tap land that gains him a life. He decides to recast Vial Smasher. Moving to combat, he swings his dragon at me for 6 damage.
I think that's a 20.
Oh, that's 40, bro.
Got the
That's
20.
20. That's 20 pressure. Ooh, let's fucking go.
After hitting me for 6, Mike nat rolls a 20 for the hit trigger. He recasts his other commander, having Sakashima enter as a 2nd Ancient Copper Dragon. He falls with the Hostage Taker, opting to exile my Ashnod's Altar. He even pays the mana to cast it so I don't get it back. After putting a ton of pressure on the board, Mike passes to Reuben. For turn 9, Reuben draws and plays a land.
I'm going to attempt to pay 6 black.
Uh-oh.
For Doomsday Excruciator. When it ETBs, if it was cast, each player exiles all but the bottom 6 cards of their library.
Oh shoot! All with the bottom 6?
Mm-hmm.
All but the bottom.
I have no
6.
response.
I got no response.
Reuben cast a crazy Doomsday Excruciator, exiling all but the bottom 6 cards of everyone's deck. I'm especially scared as I'm drawing 2 cards a turn, losing twice as fast. He passes and we move to Drew. Drew draws and leaves 5 cards in his deck. Not wanting to do anything, he simply passes over to me. On my upkeep, I lose another 2 life, amassing an army and drawing a card. I then draw for turn with 4 cards left in my library. I pay 4 mana to bring out a Grave Pack, but Mike puts a quick stop to that with a Force of Negation, paying the casting cost. He rolls for his Vial Smasher and I take 3 damage. I then decide to cast Grey Merchant of Asphodel with a devotion of 10. My opponents each lose 10 life while I gain 30. Moving to combat, I swing 4 damage Reuben's way. He has to take the attack because of the menace and I pass to Mike, opting not to sack anything with Braids. Mike untaps and draws. He plays a Dimir Locket for turn. His Vial Smasher holding a grudge throws another 3 damage my way. Mike moves to combat, and after contemplating who to take out, he decides to swing one of his dragons Drew's way and the other my way. Drew responds by activating his War Room, drawing a card and taking 2 damage. He gets nothing of use and dies on the attack while I take 6. Mike then makes another 20 treasures and decides to sack his Dimir Locket to draw 2 cards and then passes the turn. Reuben starts turn 10 by drawing 2 cards because of his demon. He casts a strong Sir Conrad the Grim. He then plays a land for turn, having enough mana to now mill us 3 cards each. Before he does, Reuben decides to downtake his commander, sacrificing his demon to destroy Mike's Vial Smasher. Mike responds by casting a Flare of Malice, forcing Reuben and I to sack a creature. Reuben responds by activating Sir Conrad 3 times, having us all mill 3 cards before he has to sack the creature. We lose 3 life from creatures being sacked and milled, then Sir Conrad and Vial Smasher are destroyed. Reuben simply passes over the turn, and with no way for Mike and I to add cards to our deck, Reuben mills us out and takes the win.
Alright, yeah, I'm done, Mike. Your turn. Your turn, bro.
This is my backup plan.
That was an insanely fun way to end the game. Reuben sat back and waited his turn to come out on top, having just the perfect amount of mana and black pips to mill us out with Sir Conrad after exiling our libraries. That was something I really did not expect. If you enjoyed the video and want to see more, be sure to subscribe to Common Command and consider using our TCG Player affiliate link to support the channel below.